Hey, it's Gyokyo, aka Reverend Harry, and I'm here to follow up on a talk I gave last week on October 16th, 2022, called Getting a Handle on Samsara. And that title came after the fact, but it's kind of a play on the book that I talked about, which is called Hard to Handle, The Life and Death of the Black Crowes. It's a book by Steve Gorman, who was the drummer for the Black Crowes, and he wrote it with someone named Steven Hyden. Now, that book covers a long period of time from the late 80s through about 2014, when he finally left the band for good. The book itself was published in 2019. But when I was talking about it last week, it was, I think I got to about 1995, maybe 1999, which was a fair chunk of the book. Because I mean, there's a lot of the information is more kind of on the earlier years of the band. But I hadn't finished it yet at that time. Well, I finished the book. I've been reading it every day, just kind of can't stop. Just so interesting to me. I don't know, if you've never heard of the Black Crowes, it might not be interesting, but if you're into rock music, or certainly if you are into the Black Crowes, I think it's a great read. Really, really interesting. It's written by a real person about real people. But while I was reading it, I think it's hard to think of it sometimes in that way, right? And it's hard to think about celebrities like that, right? That we're so used to having the lives of celebrities up in front of us all the time, in the news or magazines or whatever, right? So it's interesting to read something. It's a true story, right? I mean, the way it reads, it could be a novel or something or a movie. Just some of the stuff that happens in the book, you're just like, what? Which is also partly why it's so entertaining. But that's also, I think, part of what I liked so much about it. And, seeing those people as real people, the band members, some of the huge rock legends that they encounter, they playing with the Rolling Stones and Jimmy Page and Robert Plant of Led Zeppelin, and just, the gods of rock music, right? That they met them and hung out with them and that kind of thing. So that's part of what makes the book so neat. But as much as they're real people, it's still from his perspective, from Steve Gorman's perspective. But, that's something that he actually acknowledges in the book, which is another part that to me is really interesting. Like in the epilogue, he says, "This is my story of the Black Crowes," right? And that if anyone else told the story, it would probably be totally different. And I think that's great, to recognize that he's telling the story from his own perspective, and that he's not telling the truth in a way. It's the truth as he saw it. It's his truth. And to me, that resonates with, what I've learned about Yogacara Buddhism, or mind only, right? Recognizing that everything I experience is filtered through me and my own experiences, right? So that I don't see things as they are. I see them because of who I am. Another thing that I thought was really great about this book, and that makes me really appreciate it, is he says, this is also towards the end of the book, with every new chapter, I had more perspective on the band, but more importantly on myself, right? And you don't have to do this, but I think that reflecting on ourselves is part of Shin Buddhism, if not part of Buddhism in general, right? And so having that perspective and reflection as we live our lives, right? And so it's just nice to hear him say that. Now, in the epilogue too, he has a nice section talking about how he grew up with brothers and maybe fighting and playing a lot with his brothers, and but also like having really strong sense of family and how they back each other up. And so I noticed while I was reading the book that he didn't talk about his own upbringing so much. It was usually about the band and the experiences he had with the band. So at the end, when he puts that in, it's like, oh wow, it kind of puts the rest of the book in focus a little different way. And then he follows it up. So this is kind of right near the end. He says, "I bought the ticket. I took the ride. I am not a victim. I wasn't wrong. The black crows often felt like a cross to bear, and the black crows did a number on my central nervous system, but that is not anyone else's fault. I did all of this. So that, wow, it really seems like he's come to terms with all the suffering, pain and suffering. And I think he was miserable for a lot of the time, just, why would you put yourself through all that? But at the end, he's like, he takes the responsibility for himself. And I think that's really, really amazing. And then the last line that I'm going to quote, and the music still makes everything worth it. That's it. It's like he's living his life. He's making this incredible music, and it's playing that makes it worthwhile. I have a lot of dreams about music. I played music myself a lot, in high school and college, a little bit after college. But then when I went off to study Buddhism, I never really got to engage in it to that extent again. Being in a band, I never actually got to tour. We would play far away for maybe 2 or 3 shows, but we never went on tour when I was in the band. Jiggle the Handle did that later after I left, but I never really had that experience. So I've only dreamed about it. So I can't criticize anyone else. That's a whole important aspect of being a rock musician or just being a musician. Playing isn't just the concert. It's getting to the concert, it's sitting around and waiting, it's getting things set up, it's afterwards and, getting on to the next show, and day after day after day, I think a lot of tedium and boredom. And, so when he says that, the music still makes everything worth it. It's like, wow, yep, man, he's had what an experience, what a life, and thank you, for sharing it. Just, I really, really enjoyed this book. So anyway, thinking about this Buddhistically goes back to that title I came up with, right? Getting a handle on samsara. So they're known for this song, a cover version of a song, Hard to Handle, right? And so trying to understand samsara, what is samsara? And that I think is part of being Buddhist, right? Like deepening your insight into what is it about samsara that in some ways makes it, maybe we don't want to indulge in this. In other ways, realizing maybe there's something else, nirvana, right? And so to me, as I was reading this book, and I said this last time, right, was that this reads as a great example of samsara, with the constant up and down and up and down and up and down, and especially with this band. It sounds like a lot of up and down, right? Each night, each day was up and down, right? Play, and then putting it down, and then having to go through all this fighting, and then play again, and it's great, and then all this, right? And actually, last night I was listening to the Ohio Players, and they have that song "Love Roller Coaster," roller coaster, boom, boom, boom. Boom, 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 roller coaster, right? And so I was thinking about, oh wow, there's not a lot of lyrics in that song. It's actually just chorus. It's funk, and it doesn't need like first chorus, bridge kind of stuff, right? It's just a groove, an amazing groove with amazing ornaments, right? But maybe you could do a Buddhist version, but it'd be life roller coaster instead of love roller coaster, right? Realizing life is this up and down, up and down. And, some kinds of Buddhism, I think, realize maybe samsara is something to be rejected or to escape from, right? That's one view of samsara in some kinds of Buddhism. But I think that Shinshu is different. And Shinshu, to me, has a kind of acceptance of samsara. In one sense, shikataganai, shoganai, this Japanese term, there's nothing to be done, right? We're kind of stuck in samsara while we're in this life. But it's also, it's not for the special talented few who can somehow rise above it all, master the practices, whether it's meditation, becoming a monk, being able to remove yourself from samsara, remain clean, right? Or cleanse yourself, purify yourself so that you don't have to be stuck in samsara. That's great if you can do it. But Shinshu is for anyone and everyone, right? And it's especially for people who can't rise above it all. I'm quoting Funkadelic there, George Clinton, right? But we're all living this life, right? In a way, we're stuck here in some ways, right? Especially realizing, the difficulties. But in Shin Buddhism, I think it gives us another way to live this life, to live in samsara. as myself, as yourself, right? That you don't have to change, you don't have to be better, you don't have to think of yourself as bad. No, it's for everyone, and that we come through saying the Nembutsu and we're living our lives and reflecting on ourselves. I think maybe we're able to live this samsaric life with awareness and appreciation. Right? And that to me is coming back to the book. That's why I like the book. Really, for me myself, seeing him gain a deeper appreciation of his life and of the music, but for me too, getting a deeper appreciation of this band. Like I said last time, I've been in kind of a slump and just not playing my bass at all and not picking it up to do anything, whether playing along with other music or coming up with my own. I didn't really play at all for several months, and then getting back into the Black Crowes and that second album, Southern Harmony, a musical companion, just being like, this is amazing. I got to pick up my bass and try and play some of this stuff because these bass lines are perfect. The music is amazing, right? So, I have been recording some videos of bass play-alongs, playing along with this music, and so. It also gave me, like I mentioned, kind of insight into my own dreams and aspirations, whether the ones that I had 30 years ago, and having that in a different perspective by seeing someone who at the same time, only a little older than me, actually making it, and the difficulty, of that. But then also the dreams maybe I have even now, right? That I still think about music a lot. I love playing, but also realizing, playing by yourself is way different than being in a band. Being in a band is not only the music, it's the relationships. And this book is an example of that. The bands I've been playing with are examples of that. So deep respect to Steve Gorman for what he went through and, the amazing music that he made along the way. And thanks for listening. Namo Amitabha. Namang Namang Namang.